Hey guys, what's up? Randomosity Remixes here today to bring you something a little bit different from my normal content. So after being stuck at home for so long, I've had a lot more time to focus on music production, and I've been really active posting more tracks to the channel. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen some of those. And so sort of in relation to that, a while back I had this idea to make a video series where I break down some of my tracks and explain how I made them. So not only do I think it'll be entertaining for you guys to watch, but I also think it'll be good for me to sort of keep record of the skills and techniques I use, as well as be a good resource for newer producers who might be, kind of picking through them and trying to find techniques of their own to use. Not to mention, people have actually asked me in the comment sections before about my music making process and, my workflow and such. So yeah, we're doing it. So in today's episode, I want to go behind the remix of a newly released cover I just did of one of the edit themes from the Super Mario Maker 2 soundtrack. So if y'all have been following my channel for a while, you know that I absolutely adore the Super Mario Maker 2 soundtrack. I love it so much. But, out of all the stuff in the soundtrack, it's not the level themes, it's not the menu themes, it's not the title theme. Like, my favorite aspect of the game by far are the edit themes. So for those of you who have never played the original Mario Maker or Super Mario Maker 2, I'll give you the quick rundown. Basically, when you're designing your levels in the game has edit themes that play specifically for each different level type. And what's really cool about these edit themes is that not only do they mesh with the actual level themes perfectly, so that when you transition between the edit menu and actually playing your level, the music transition is seamless. But on top of that, the way the level theme was composed is that it's sort of modular. So it's a series of different audio channels, and as you're editing the level, the audio channels dynamically fade in or out depending on what you're doing. And so I am an absolute, I love dynamic music in video games. I love it when video game composers make music that changes as the player is playing based on what they're doing. So when I initially got Super Mario Maker 2, I absolutely geeked out about these edit themes. And there were a lot of times where I would just kind of, whip out my Switch and I would just go into the level editor. And in a way, the level editor felt like an instrument, because I would just be messing around and designing levels, but I would be doing it just to listen to the edit themes for those levels, which is really cool. So obviously, shout out to all the composers that worked on Super Mario Maker 2. So Atsuko Asahi, Toru Minagishi, Sayako Doi, and Koji Kondo. I may have butchered some of those, but they all worked on the soundtrack, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know who Koji Kondo is, because his contributions, he's done a lot. But the other people that worked on the soundtrack, they've done a lot as well. So all four of them did a great job. But like I said before, the edit themes were definitely my favorite part of the game, and so to explore the edit themes and sort of how they were composed in more detail, I took one of my favorite edit themes from the game, which is the edit theme for the Super Mario 3D World Forest theme, and I decided to try and recreate it from scratch in FL Studio while trying to stay as close to the original as I possibly could. And so for this episode, I'm going to break down each instrument in that composition of the song that I did, that I produced. And then I'm going to be talking about sort of my workflow, how I compare with the original version of the song, how I made certain instruments and synths and stuff. And I think it's going to be really cool. But before I get started, last little addendum, I have to give a huge shout out to two other YouTube channels that this whole video wouldn't have even been possible without them. First off, shout out to Vinny64, his YouTube channel. He also likes the edit themes probably just as much as I do, because what he did was he ripped all the channel audio from the game, and he assembled the channels so that instead of just playing every channel at once like a lot of other YouTube uploads do, he fades in and fades out certain channels as the song is playing. So he uploaded a whole suite of every single song in the game, edited in what he calls his multi-layer mixes, and I've been listening to those for months. They're absolutely fantastic. It's my favorite way to listen to the music from the game. So I'll put a link in the description for that. So definitely please check it out, because he deserves the exposure. Like, I really appreciate him doing that. And then I also have to give a shout out to Nintendo, because they did uploads of every single edit theme with all the channels isolated, which was insanely helpful for me during this project. And I'm even going to be citing one of their videos in this video, because there's no way I would have been able to do what I did if that upload didn't exist, because I had to compare all the instruments I was using to the individual instruments from those uploads. So yeah, Vinny64, Nintendo, I'm gonna have a link in the description to both of their channels. Please check them out and show them some love. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get behind the remix. So anyway, here we are in FL Studio. And so you can see right here, here's the layout for the track that I did. Now, if you listen to the upload that I made for this remix, which should go up before I post this video, that one's going to sound different than this, because for the sake of the video, I decided to just have every layer on top of each other. But here is the actual composition in and of itself. So what I'll do is, just so you guys can compare, I'll play you the original first. And so let me go ahead and switch over. So you guys, here we go. So I will play, oh, you know what? Give me one sec. So I will go ahead and I will play you all the original, so you can hear what that one sounds like. All right. Nice and cool. Pretty funky, huh? I'm telling you, that's like one of my favorite edit themes from the game. Like, I love that one so much. But now that I've shown you that one, let me go ahead and show you my recreation that I did in FL Studio, so my cover. And I'm going to play it all the way through. So I'll be quiet, and you can go ahead, and here is my recreation right here. So there you go. There's my recreation. So not too shabby, if I do say so myself. I think it's pretty close to the original. I learned an immense amount by covering the original song. And so now I'm going to walk through every individual instrument and sort of explain my methodology for sort of how I arrived at this final project, like what my process was. Let's kind of go in order here. So the first instrument I worked on was the Rhodes, which is right here. Oh, wait. There we go. So that was the first instrument I worked on, and the Rhodes was surprisingly hard. Not the sound. The sound was pretty easy to get at least marginally close to the original. It's not one for sure. But what I did was I took the default Rhodes. So if you look over here, FL Studio has the Rhodes under the instruments keyboard section. Yeah, so I took the default Rhodes. And then what I did was I tried to map out the pattern of it from the original song, which was really hard because I am not good at music theory. I used to play piano. I used to play classical piano. And when I played classical piano, I had a pretty decent grasp of music theory, but I dropped off somewhere around high school. And so my music theory skills kind of like, flew south for the winter. So there's not much that I remember. And that was a little problematic doing this because there's some crazy like jazz chords that the Rhodes in this song uses. So even though it was a little tough mapping that out, I did have fun with it. I do play by ear really often, so even though my music theory is not that strong, I basically just listened to the original over and over again until I got somewhat close. And so I don't think it's 100% perfect, but I think it's definitely close enough. So once I had that kind of laid out, I went over and in the mixer channel, I added a mild flanger. And that's because, for those of you that don't know what a flanger is, it's basically... I don't want to get too like specific with it, but I think it like duplicates the sound, but then slightly changes the duplicated version and then like meshes it with the original. So it makes this sort of like squishy, phasey effect on the sound. If I turn the flanger off, you can hear it's kind of more of a hard, solid sound, but when I have it on, you get sort of that garbled noise. That is something that's present in the original. Like, if we go to those individual channel playlists like I was talking about, so you can kind of hear in the original, that was also there, that sort of flanging, garbled effect. Yeah, I added the flanger there to sort of mimic that in my version because I wanted it to sound, whoa. Move on to the bass now because that was the second part I worked on. The bass in this song is very easy, but I also like to note I cheated. When I listened to the original bass in the original song, I realized, because for the longest time, I listened to the song over and over and over again, and I was convinced that the bass line was like an acoustic bass or something. But when I listened to the individual channel uploads from Nintendo, it dawned on me, I'm like, yo, this isn't like an actual bass. It's a synth. At first, I tried to recreate it, but, confession time, I am absolutely terrible at making synth basses. I don't know why. I feel like it's just some sort of weird plague or like, synth basses are just my white whale, and I'm like Captain Ahab, and I'm gonna be like chasing them forever. But that's definitely probably one of my weakest. As a producer, that's like one of my weakest spots. Which you think making basses would be easy, but I don't know. It's just like I've always had trouble with it. And so I can go ahead and play my bass. So rather than making a synth bass from scratch, I used FL Studio's Boo Bass plugin, which I absolutely adore this plugin. I first found out about it when watching a live stream from T-Lopes, who you guys probably know. He composed for Sonic Mania, but he did, I can't remember if it was actually a live stream or a pre-recorded session, but just for fun, he made a song using nothing but FL Studio presets. And when I was first starting out, I love that video because I was a lot worse than I am now. And so I was trying to figure out ways to make good sounding music using just what's available in FL. And so I saw when he made that one that he used the Boo Bass plugin for the bass line. And I'm honestly shocked not more people who use FL use Boo Bass because it's a really good, simple bass if you're just looking to add some bass to your song. And with the tweakable parameters you see here, the bass parameter, the mid parameter, and the treble parameter, you can tweak all of these to sort of affect how the bass sounds. So if you need it to sound a little deeper, have some more low frequencies, you turn up the bass. If you want it to have some high sort of twang to it and not be so much on the low end, you can turn up the treble. So it has like one distinct sound, but you can alter that sound a bit, and it's reliable. That's what I would say. So, I mean, you guys can hear it. It's a bass. So yeah, the bass worked incredibly well. Now drums are like, I really do like drums. It's really fun to map out drum patterns, especially in FL because FL has a phenomenal step sequencer. But drum patterns are a really fun part, and this song has a really like killer, awesome drum pattern. So I listened to the drum patterns individual channel on loop multiple times to get it down. Back when I was working on this in FL, after listening to that a bunch of times, I, like the rest of the song, recreated the drum beat using some drum samples here. So mapping out the beat was actually really fun. Beats in general are fun because it's like when you're making drum beats, it's like hit the drum on the rhythm that sounds right. Like if you have a good sense of rhythm, mapping out drums isn't too bad. So that was really, really fun to do. And then to complement the drums, the original song actually has a filtered drum and bass beat that plays in the background, which was an incredibly good touch. I love that in the original song. So like throughout the whole song, you'll sort of hear it's either high passed or band passed. I can't tell 100%. I want to lean towards high passed, but maybe listen here. So it does that for the entire song pretty much, and that kind of gives a steady backbone for the rest of the drums to sit on. And so I took one of FL Studio's default drum loops. I think it might have been, actually wait, I can check. Yeah, it was DL Breaker. I took the Breaker drum loop, which if I go up here for y'all, you can hear in all its glory. So, and then in my actual song, I chopped it so that the beat lined up with my other drums correctly. Yeah, so there you go. That's how I did that. And then also in the mixer, to get the filtering effect that was in the original. Oh, I forgot. Okay, so the name here is different because I had a different sample that I tested before, but it did not sound good, so I replaced it. But to get that filtering effect, I did a bandpass filter. I used a stereo enhancer and actually reduced the stereo separation because the sample had some, left and right stereo channel stuff going on that I didn't really want. It was like polluting the rest of the mix. And then I went to the parametric equalizer and I got rid of some of the high frequencies on top of the bandpass filter. So by that point, I got a sound that I thought worked really, really well for the song. Oh my gosh, okay. Now we get to go on to like one of my favorite parts. I was really excited to get to this, but the strings! Oof. Yes, I love orchestral instruments. I've been listening to classical music since I was like a baby. I love like strings and horns and all the good classical music stuff. So working on the strings was so much fun. There's this sort of upward staccato arpeggio that plays throughout the song. So I'll go ahead and play this. So that plays throughout the bulk of the song, and for anyone curious about the preset I used, I went to the Flex plugin, which actually they added very recently with the FL Studio 20 update, but the Flex plugin has a lot of very high quality orchestral samples, and I'm not gonna say all of them are high quality. I guess like it can be hit or miss. Like a lot of the winds, like the horns and stuff, are actually pretty bad, but the strings are great. And so I used the all string staccato preset, which made things really simple. And if you really want to see these strings shine, let me go over to here we go. So this is sort of the bridge section, I think, or Yeah. So this is the section where it kind of breaks down towards the end, and like the strings really pop off here. So let me just. Yeah, so I just, oh my gosh, every time it's that very end part, like this one right here, I kind of shudder because, like, I don't know, it's so powerful, especially with those deep strings at the very lower register. Like, I love the way it sort of just closes out and then brings the song to a close to loop back at the beginning. And that was something that I loved in the original song too. So recreating that in FL Studio was a lot of fun for me. The hardest part of the strings was probably the pizzicato. So I use the all strings pizzicato preset. But the pizzicato preset they had in the actual song was very high quality, to my ears at least. So it was I had to settle for having lower quality pizzicato, and then I put a bunch of effects on it to try and make it sound at least somewhat in the same ballpark. Let me try and find it. Yeah, like you hear that? Like the pizzicato strings they have are so good. These aren't bad, but like I had to settle a little bit back in FL. So like it was okay. They're not on par quality wise, but it was good enough. So then that was the strings. There was and then there was the synth ARP, which the ARP was super fun to make. I made this preset from scratch in the GMS plugin. It's actually a modification of an older preset I made called Cheery Blip. And then I tweaked Cheery Blip a little bit to make this. So I'll go ahead and play it. So this one was incredibly fun to work on. ARPs are one of my favorite types of synths to make because I think pluck sounding synths are easy. Like they're one of the easier synths to me to make, and you can just have a lot of fun with like screwing with like the small little ting ting ting, like the tinking noises and stuff. So I really like working with ARPs. But as far as what I actually did, I layered 3 saws, and so I had the first saw. I kept it at a regular pitch, but I turned up the fine a little bit to make it have sort of a detuned sound. I added another saw, and so right here, the pitch setting, this alters each saw's pitch per semitone. So for any music novices out there, 12 semitones equals 1 octave. 7 semitones is a fifth, and so if you tweak something up or down 7 semitones relative to another oscillator, you can get it harmonizes well, and fifth note harmonization sounds really, really cool. So I took that second oscillator and I turned it down 7 semitones to give it fifth harmonization with the first oscillator, and then the third one I turned down an entire octave, so it's just playing an octave lower, and I also detuned this one a bit. So after that, I gave him 2 voices and added a little bit of stereo, and then I tweaked the envelope so that it would have a plucky effect in regards to the filter. So this is like a low pass filter. And then what the envelope is doing is it's basically, there's a small amount of attack where the entire sound is like getting cut off. So if you see this here, imagine that like as every note is played, the cutoff filter is going down. And then the decay here is like once it reaches its lowest point, it's the amount of time it takes for it to come back up. So that happens there. And then I also had an LFO on the volume, so like the amplitude, which is why you kind of heard the synth fading in and out. And then I did another one. I made another low pass filter, and then I automated this as well. So it cuts off in and out, as the beat keeps playing. So like you kind of get this fading in and out effect as it plays. And with the echo and reverb, it just makes for this really nice sort of high-pitched, like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star sound that plays in the sort of background with the rest of the song. And so if we compare that to the original, my synth is definitely not one for one with the original, but I definitely think it's good enough. It was close. It was close enough for my taste. So if you go back here. So some of the notes are a little off, and on top of that, mine has like slightly less body than the original. Like the original is a bit more present, but I still think it was good. For a recreation, I think it was close enough. Now moving on. Oh yeah, the marimba. I almost forgot about this one. I can't forget about this little guy. This one's great. So the marimba was really fun to work on. It's sort of like it's an orchestral, like sort of chromatic instrument that you like play by hitting it with little hammers, and it makes, well, y'all recognize it when you hear it. Hang on. So this one was really fun to work on because the marimba is just kind of a fun, lighthearted instrument in general. And so I like the way they use it in the original song. It kind of gives sort of an islandy, easygoing vibe, which was probably why the original composer chose to use it, because after all, this was for an edit theme for a forest. So if you're in sort of like a tropical jungle, you could totally hear like kind of a... It's like you're kind of like strolling through the tropical jungle. So I like that. So I did that. I brought in the marimba, and this is from the Sketching Orchestra VST, which is one that I use really, really often. You can see the interface here. It's 100% free, and it has a bunch of different orchestral samples. Not all of them are good. Quite a few of them are like very in terms of sound quality, but there's enough gems in here that it's definitely worth using. For one. For two, it's free. So it's like, you can't really complain if you're not paying any money for it. And then for three, if you know what you're doing with like mixing and mastering and adding effects afterwards, you can really sort of dust off a lot of these samples and then use the effects to make them sound really good. So for example, for this one, yeah, there you go. So I added some equalizer and I removed some of the lower frequencies because the sampled marimba, one of the downsides was that you could actually kind of hear wherever the original samples came from, the person hitting the marimba. And on the one hand, that's like, if you want it to sound real, I guess that's not bad. But when you're using it in sort of this digital audio workstation, the sound can become kind of grating and a little annoying, and even kind of linger and screw up your mix. And when you have the headphones on, there's a part of you that's just like, what is that like? Doom, doom, like what is that like sort of lower frequency noise every time the marimba plays? So I got rid of it because I thought it was gross and it was kind of annoying. I do the same thing a lot when I load in pianos, because there are a lot of piano VSTs and samples that like when they actually press the key, you can like hear the key going down, and it's annoying. So if you just get rid of the lower frequencies, it'll get rid of that for you. And so then after that, I did some reverb to make it wet and sort of give it some space. And then I added delay to crank up that space even more. And so the delay time, I picked, you can see in the top left corner there, I picked a delay time of 8. So it's like, as soon as one riff is done playing, it's like the riff starts over as the next riff is starting. So it's like, I mean, I'll play it and you can hear what I mean. So here how it's like, da na 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 na, and then as it got ready to play the next part, you sort of hear like slightly quieter na 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 again. I chose sort of a long delay time so that it would kind of linger for quite a while, and I think that was a good decision. The original song is very similar. It also has the delay linger for quite a long time. So you can kind of hear they were really similar. They did a similar thing with a delay in the original song. And actually, listening to the original reminded me, I totally forgot, but if you can see down here, I automated the panning for the marimba. And that's really important because in the original song, you heard the marimba bounces back and forth between the left and right stereo channels. And so I mimicked that in my composition as well. So the marimba bounces back and forth between the left and right parts of the stereo channel. So I'll go ahead and play that. If you're not wearing like headphones or earbuds, it might be a little hard to hear it, but I'm just going to go ahead. So you can kind of hear it in my version. It's a little less present, but it's definitely there. I definitely did bounce it back and forth between the left and right stereo channels. If I had done a different shape for the automation, like perhaps a square wave instead of a triangle, it might have made it more present. But I was okay with how it sounded after doing it this way. And I think I recall even trying out a square wave and then just preferring it this way. So I just ended up undoing and kind of going back to doing it this way. But yeah, that's pretty much every individual instrument. I know I broke down some of the effects I applied on them in the mixer channel. And so now what I want to do, as we reach the sort of tail end of this video, is sort of show what I was talking about earlier at the beginning, how one of the coolest thing about the edits themes for Mario Maker that you can also see with my recreation here in my cover is that they're so, like, the composition is so perfectly designed that I say this all the time. Every instrument sounds good on its own or with any other instrument. And that might sound silly. Like you might be like, oh, if you're playing in a band, like every instrument has to sound good. That's a given. But like, no, I really want to stress like the way they design the Mario Maker soundtrack, like every individual audio channel, like when you're playing one instrument from a given channel, sounds good on its own. And then if you play it with any other audio channel, it also sounds good. Like, it always sounds like they were supposed to be together. And that's really important because with the way dynamic music works in Super Mario Maker, like when you're playing the levels, there's no telling because it's programmatically loading in and loading out different channels. There's no telling what two channels are going to be playing at the same time. So it's like for the composers that worked on the game, they were really, really tasked with like designing the music to truly sound good no matter how much of the music itself was playing. Which, you know, I was geeking out at the beginning, but I'll geek out once again. I think that's so like super duper awesome. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to play through the song, but as I'm playing, I'm going to randomly fade in and fade out different tracks. So like here I have these buttons and I can turn off or turn on tracks at will. So I'll play the song for like, I don't know, 2 minutes or so. And I'll just randomly bring in and bring out certain instruments. And you'll hear like, no matter what two instruments are playing at the same time, they sound like they were supposed to be together. So I'm going to shut up and let's go ahead and check out this really cool demo. So there you have it. Like, as you probably saw, like, no matter what two channels or more than two channels were playing at a given time, the song always sounded right. Like your ears were kind of like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. And you know, everybody's different. Maybe you were like, oh, I didn't think it sounded quite right when these particular tracks were playing. But I can say for sure, like having listened to the tracks for months now, like I've listened to them over and over again. A consistency I find between all the edit themes is like, that's just how they were made. It's like no matter what channels or what two channels are playing at a given time, it always sounds correct. And so doing this little cover, you know, that's true of this as well, because I was literally just trying to recreate one of the themes, and you can kind of see it as I turned on and turned off different tracks. So yeah, I just think it's really amazing. It's just a testament to how awesome dynamic video game music really is. And so I think that's actually going to do it for this episode. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know this was a bit of a long one. It's my first time doing this. This was the first episode of Behind the Remix. So let me know in the comment section below. Did you enjoy this? Would you like to see more videos like this in the future? Because I think this is definitely something that I want to continue doing. Do you have any recommendations for like how I should do it in the future? And also, sort of to just keep it to the current video topic, have any of you guys played Super Mario Maker 1 or 2? Have you noticed this about the Mario Maker soundtrack? Are you as crazy about the edit themes as I am? If you are, you know, please let me know in the comment section below. But thank you so much for taking the time to tune in and watch. If you want, you can head on over to the original upload. That's just the music that I was analyzing in this episode. So where my cover of the Mario Maker edit theme, you can go listen to that. You can go check out the channel. If you're not subbed or this is your first time on my channel, thanks for dropping by and watching my video. Check out some of my other stuff, and if you're interested, I'd really appreciate you subscribing. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.